Anselmus Cur Deus Homo. Book first. Chapter 10. Likewise on the same topics, and how otherwise they can be correctly explained. It is also a fair interpretation that it was by the same holy will by which the Son wished to die for the salvation of the world, that the Father gave him commandment, yet not by compulsion, and the cup of suffering, and spared him not, but gave him up for us, and desired his death, and that the Son himself was obedient even unto death, and learned obedience from the thing which he suffered. For as with regard to that will which led him to a holy life, he did not have it as a human being of himself, but of the Father, so also that will by which he decided to die for the accomplishment of so great good, he could not have had but from the Father of light, from whom is every good and perfect gift. And as the Father is said to draw by imparting an inclination, so there is nothing improper in asserting that he moves men. For as the Son says of the Father, no man come to me, except the Father draw him. He might as well have said, except he move him. In like manner also could he have declared, no man laid down his life for my sake, except the Father move or draw him. For since a man is drawn or moved by his will to that which he invariably chooses, it is not improper to say that God draws or moves him when he gives him to this will, and is drawing and or impelling. It is not to be understood that there is any constraint, but a free and grateful clinging to the holy will which has been given. If then it cannot be denied that the Father drew or moved the Son to death by giving him that will, who does not see that, in the same manner, he gave him commandment to endure and to endure death of his own accord, and to take the cup which he freely drank? And if it is right to say that the Son spared not himself, but gave himself for us of his own will, who will deny that it is right to say that the Father, of whom he had this will, did not spare him, but gave him up for us and desired his death? In this way, also, by following the will received from the Father invariably, and of his own accord, the Son become obedient to him even unto death, and learn obedience from the things which he suffered. That is, we learn how great was the work to accomplish by obedience. For this is real and sincere obedience when a rational being, not of compulsion, but freely, follows the will received from God. In other ways, also, we can probably explain the Father's desire that the Son should die, though this would appear sufficient. For as we say that he desired a thing, who causes another to desire it, so also we say that he desires a thing, who approves of the desire of another, though he does not cause that desire. Thus, when we see a man who desires to endure pain with fortitude for the accomplishment of some good design, though we acknowledge that we wish to have him endure the pain, yet we do not choose, nor take pleasure in suffering, but in his choice. We are also accustomed to say that he who can prevent a thing but does not desires the thing which he does not prevent. Since, therefore, the will of the Son pleased the Father, and he did not prevent him from choosing or from fulfilling his choice, it is probable to say that he wished the Son to endure death so piously and for so great an object, though he was not pleased with his suffering. Moreover, he said that the cup must not pass from him, except he drank it, not because he could not have escaped death had he chosen to, but because, as has, be, as has been said, the world could not otherwise be saved, and it was his fixed choice to suffer death rather than that the world should not be saved. It was for this reason also that he used those words, feast, to teach the human race that there was no other salvation from them but by his death, and not to show that he had no power at all to avoid death. For whatsoever things are said of him, similar to this which have been mentioned, they are all to be explained in accordance with the belief that he died, not by compulsion, but of free choice. For he was omnipotent, and it is said of him, when he was offered up, that he desired it. And when he sa- and he says himself, I lay on myself that I may take it again, no man take it from me, but I laid it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and have power to take it again. A man cannot therefore be probably said to have been driven to a thing which he does of his own power and will. Boso, but the simple fact that God allows him to be so treated, even if he were willing, does not seem to come from such a father in respect to such a son. Anselm, yes, it is of all things most proper that such a father should acquiesce with such a son in his desire, if it be praiseworthy as relates to the honor of God, and useful for man's salvation, which would not otherwise be effected. Boso, the question which still troubles us is how the death of the Son can be proved reasonable and necessary. For otherwise, it does not seem that the Son ought to desire it, or the Father compel or permit it. For the question is, why God could not save man in some other way, and if so, why he wished to do it in this way. For it both seems unbecoming for God to have saved man in this way, and it is not clear how the death of the Son avails for the salvation of men. For it is a strange thing, if God so delights in, or requires, the blood of the innocent, that he neither chooses nor is able to spare the guilty without the sacrifice of the innocent. And some, since, in this inquiry, you take the place of those who are unwilling to believe anything not previously proved by reason, I wish to have it understood between us that we do not admit anything in the least unbecoming to be ascribed to the deity, and that we do not reject the smallest reason if it be not opposed by a greater. For as it is impossible to attribute anything in the least unbecoming to God, so any reason, however small, if not overbalanced by a greater, has the force of necessity. Also, in this matter, I accept nothing more that than that this agreement should be preserved between us in common. Answer. The question concerns only the incarnation of God and those things which we believe with regard to his taking human nature. Boso, it is so. Answer. Let us suppose, then, that the incarnation of God and the things that we affirm of him as man had never taken place, and be it agreed between us that man was made for happiness which cannot be attained in this life, and that no being can ever arrive at happiness save by freedom from sin, and that no man passes this life without sin. Let us take for granted also the other things, the belief of which is necessary for eternal salvation. Also, I grant it, for in this there is nothing which seems unbecoming or impossible for God. And some, therefore, in order that man may attain happiness, remission of sins is necessary. Also, we all hold this.